Have you got a tight IT band? Does the side of your leg give you jip? Do you get pain on the outside of your knee and you can't work out why? Why running is hard, why getting up and off the floor is challenging? Here's some ways that you can look after your IT band, no matter whether you are fit and healthy or whether you're finding that you're struggling to get up and down off the floor. So what is an IT band? It stands for the iliotibial tract, and it belongs to a set or a link of fascia down the outside of your thigh, which has got various attachment points. At the top of your hip here, so if you find your hip bone, at the top of the hip here, you can feel that bit of muscle and maybe a bit of padding. And this muscle works to do something called adduction of the hip. It doesn't work alone, it works with other muscles, in particular the glutes, which is another muscle we need to look after. But from there, what you're going to find is you've got a long piece of fascia that comes down and attaches just below the kneecap here. But when it is tight, your knee moves out of position. So if you think of this as your femur, you think of this as the bottom two bones of your body, your patella sits like a little scallop on the outside of the knee. So as the knee bends, that little scallop shape goes into the middle of the knee, and then it works like this. So it sits on the outside of the knee and comes into the knee and protects the knee joint. When your IT band is tight, what happens is it pulls that patella slightly to the side so that when you open and close your knee, instead of it fitting nicely into the groove, it rubs onto the side of the bone. Now, over time, this can lead to loss of cartilage and arthritis. So you want to make sure that the tracking of this patella is in the middle. There are many things you can do, but today we're going to look at this outside part of the hip. Now, it's not easy to work, okay? Because number one, it's a little bit painful to touch. And number two, if it is tight, then that whole lumbar stability area just kind of feels all stiff and awkward. These are some of the exercises that I find really help. I'm going to teach them from a Pilates perspective, but there are different ways of doing it. So this session is going to be around 20 minutes. It's up to you whether you just want to watch it and listen and pick up a few tips, or whether you want to try it with me. Remember, if you've got any concerns, always check with your GP or drop me a message and I'll see if I can help. So as ever, we want to check that your posture is in the right place. And this is all to do with the alignment of the bone structure. Ideally, you want your feet to be hip distance apart, and you measure that by taking the middle part of the kneecap towards your second toe, okay? From there, place your hands onto the bony part of the front of your pelvis, and you want to press the front of the pelvis forward so that your tailbone or your sacrum fits well into the side of the pelvis here, and that you're not in this leaning forward position. After that, take your hands onto your sternum and just give yourself a little bit of a lift. What we're looking for is to get that shoulder back into position. The other way you can do it is to get your finger, push your shoulder back, make sure your hands are by your side. And remember, hand on your belly, chin in, belly comes in, chin out, belly sticks out. So always keep your chin in. We're going to start with a little walk, okay? Now, this kind of walk is an important part of this. If you didn't have shoes, I would also get you to move your toes. So throughout our body, our fascia runs alongside all the muscles, and it works, if you think of it, like a Spider-Man suit, and you want to get that nice and warm. So when you're doing this work, you don't want to have little heel lifts. You want to really work through the foot, especially through the arch of the foot, the knee and the hip. Now, if you put your hands on your hips, you'll find that you're already getting this kind of small movement. And if your IT band is super tight, it is well worth doing something very gentle like this, just to warm up that area. Remember, we do know we've got so many pints of blood circulating around our body, but the majority of the time, 80% of it remains in the central part. And we want to start to divert that blood to this muscle to keep it warm. Okay, so we're now going to take a pretend step forward. Okay, so you're still in that hip distance apart. I'm going to turn to the side, and what you're going to do is rock forwards onto the ball of your foot, rock back and pull your toes up. So you're going to rock forwards and rock back, okay? When you're rocking forwards, lift your rib cage and push your pelvis towards me. You can use your opposite arm, and you want to find what's called your flow. And this is all to do with the rhythm and balance between the spine and the pelvis. And you want to wake that nervous system up. And this is why you want to be off and on balance rather than being static. Now, using your arms activates the core a little bit and also helps to warm up your body. So don't worry what you look like. And don't worry if you're not in time with me. Remember, we've all got our own rhythm here. Okay, and we're going to change over to the other side. Again, feet apart, step, heel up, hips, ribs. Go slowly if you find it challenging, and you might find one side feels a little bit easier than the other. Now, this might look a bit odd, but I tell you, when I've been working with people with back issues, you don't want to rush into any kind of quick movement. You want to take it gradually and move slowly and get your body prepared. All right, and then release. Okay, taking your feet slightly wider apart, you're going to roll your shoulders up, back and down. Now remember, your shoulders have these 4 movements. But did you know your body has a sling system? So this hip works with this shoulder. So if you've got a tight IT band on one side, you've probably got a tight shoulder on the other side. When you're doing your shoulder movements, feel like you're pulling away from the chest to get that little bit of stretch. And the same thing with your arm. And think about things that you do, you know, like reaching into the back seat of the car or going to get your safety belt. And then with this arm circle, try and add a little bit of lift through the body. Now, if you put your hand here, as you're doing that lift, you should feel that little bit of stretch. So you don't want to be kind of just waving your arms around. Think about lift and open. And this is going to give a little bit of pull, okay, also onto the lumbar spine, just to warm that up. And again. All right. So this is a side combination. From here, you're going to reach to the side. See how my body moves from the waist, but not from the hip. Can't see me with that radiator, can you? Arm up, arm over. Now watch. Turn the back of your hand and sweep it across your pelvis. So if you're a sporty person, think about like a backhand shot that you're going to do. And if you're a dancey person, you can kind of draw a circle. Okay, so do the movement that suits you, but definitely do that turn through the shoulder. All right, because this kind of range of movement is going to warm up through the shoulder blade and the scapula and the shoulder joint and your lower back and work your balance. And as you're moving to the side, what you're getting is this little bit of stretch through the side of the body. So nothing too drastic just yet. Okay, and then release. All right, so we're going to do some balance work to begin with, just to activate that stabilising leg. Quite often, it is the stabilising leg that causes the issue, not the leg that's moving. So if you don't have good balance, please have a chair. And we're going to start with that step forwards that we just did. So when you're coming forwards here, you're pushing forwards through the hips and you're lifting up through the rib cage. And you should feel your butt muscles a little bit tight and your calf and your toe are working hard against the floor. Yeah. Now, I don't want you to lean, but I want you to lift your toe off the floor and down. Okay. So just lift and down. Don't lean. Okay. So think about having a glass of water on your head and you just lift and down. Lift and down. Yes, harder than it looks, isn't it? And watch you don't give in on this hip. Okay, let's change sides. So taking that leg back, make sure that you're moving forwards. Yeah, hips are forward, chest lifted, and you just want to go lift and down. Okay, lift and down. So think of it like losing contact with the floor. And as you do that, you should feel this hip fire up to stabilise. If you put your hands on your hip, you can probably feel that working. And so we're just kind of waking up your nervous system before we go into more work. All right. Next time, in between, let's just do a little bit of hip side to side. So think about when you have a bad back, yeah, you'll probably do this movement anyway, but you want to move into the hip area rather than moving your whole body. That makes sense, and not your knees. So just push into the hip and then into the hip the other side. So on the next one, we're going to do that balance, but you're going to try and hold it for 10 seconds. Okay, so step into the position, hips and chest, arms, hold on if you need to. Just lift and see how long you can stay with that back foot just lifted off the floor, on this stabilising hip and how much effort that's causing for that hip to work. Is it giving in? Is your knee giving in? Has your posture slumped? Can you keep everything in alignment? Okay, let's change sides. So when we're talking about everything in alignment, when you're stepping up, remember you want that hip to be forward, shoulder over your hip, and when you lift the leg, you don't want to see any kind of slump. Okay, so you really want to focus on getting, getting this hip to stabilise your body weight. Now, if you're stronger, you can move, okay? But you want to think about trying to do 10 seconds and see how you get on. All right. So we're going to do some squats now, and squats are often problematic on the knee. So we're going to modify it a little. You can hold on to the chair, that's fine. But where we have this foot primed and ready to go, you want to have your foot primed and ready to go, and you want to have the ball of your foot close to the other one, near the arch of your foot. This is going to enable you to work through your pelvis to do the squat and not work through your knees. So quite often I'll see people start the squat here and then go, oh, I can't do it because it hurts my knees, when in fact a squat starts there. All right, so when you're in this position here, I call this a magic circle or your giant dinosaur egg, whatever you want to think about it. Have your arms away from you, but don't have your arms dead straight, because I don't want your shoulders to be pulled apart. I want your shoulders to be engaged. Keep your chin tucked in, okay, and keep your eyes on me. So when you're coming down, I'll do it this way first. You bend your knees and then you stand up and push your hips forward. So watch it from the side, okay, so you're here, you push your hips forward, you sit your hips back. Now only go as far back as you can, and then you come up, but listen, don't finish there. Make sure you tilt your pelvis right underneath. All right, so I'll try it from the other side so you can see, okay? So you come down, 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 up, 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 hips forward, yeah? Let's try that again. So think about this side working, yeah? And think about see, this leg isn't doing much work. This leg is doing all the work. Now, those of you who really want to test your balance and how good your hip stability is, just lift that knee up, okay? Remember, you still have to push the hip forward, okay? So no slumping, up, 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 and down. One more time, up, up, up. Lovely. And you should already feel that hip having that work. And you're probably thinking, well, why am I working a tight muscle? Well, sometimes a squeeze in a muscle is like having a massage on the muscle, and it's going to bring more blood flow. You're not loading it with any weight, and you're only doing a functional movement. Okay, so remember, activate the foot. Don't have this half-hearted, okay? Activate your pelvis forward, your chest up, shoulders, okay? So you want to pull, imagine you're holding the dinosaur egg. You wouldn't hold it away, you'd hold it into your body, okay? So down, down, down. Watch your knees track towards your second toe, and then up, pelvis forward. So practice this little bit to gain a little bit more hip stability, and to get that IT band to think about what it's supposed to be doing to stabilize your hip joint and your knee joint, okay, when you're moving, rather than rush into it, okay? And remember, if you want to work harder, lift your knee up. And you could do these kind of exercises before you go for your run. So if it's really niggling you. Now, there's no stretching here yet, but we're going to come into stretching. All right, so one of the items I found really useful is a small Pilates ball. These kind of squishy balls can give you a good piece of resistance to be able to work against. Now, you can use it in different ways, but for today, I'm going to use it onto your pelvis. If you're not sure, have a look to see if it suits you. Now, we're looking at where the sacrum, okay, so if you think of the sacrum, fits into the pelvis here. Here's your coccyx, yeah? And then here's the top of the pelvis. So it wants to be there, not onto your back and not onto your bum. All right? Now, mine's quite pumped up. You want some resistance against it. So you can have a smaller ball than this, but you want to have some give. All right? So a tennis ball doesn't really work. If you haven't got a Pilates ball, you can use a cushion. Okay. So when you're down onto the floor, what we're going to do is you're going to place that onto your pelvis. So the easiest way is to come into a bridge and place that onto a pelvis. All right, I'm going to move down a little bit. Now, the first thing you want to do is just wriggle on it. What you're happening here is you're allowing that blood flow to come into that area, keep that area nice and warm. It's giving your back a little bit of a stretch, okay, because your pelvis is now higher than your back. If you feel comfortable, I'm going to bring one knee over your body, and this is going to increase the stretch. You can either hold underneath the knee or on top if it's more comfortable. Take a deep breath in, roll your shoulders down, and if you feel all right, you can straighten out the other leg along the floor. If you feel like you're going to fall off, you can put one hand down to balance. And you just want to let that small movement happen. Then you're going to bring your foot in, and we're going to try onto the other side. So don't rush with this, okay, because a lot of this is to do with the balance. Remember, the IT band really helps with balance when you're running and walking. Okay, so your quads and your hip flexors are going to do the main work of the leg. These just work between stabilising between the knee and the hip. This part allows your hip flexor through the front of the thigh to relax. Because your pelvis is slightly lifted, you get a good stretch here to try and let that release. Then come into your frog stretch. Now you don't want to be still on this one, okay, so you just want to wriggle side to side. This is going to open up through the front of the hips, because tight hip flexors probably means you've got tight piriformis, and we want to work through that hip joint before we go into the stretch to allow that hip to open and relax a little bit more. Then finally, if your balance is good, what you can do is just bring your knees over your body, or even let your legs come up towards the ceiling. And this is a good recovery position as well after your run to help recovery through the legs. But if you're somebody with back issues, it's quite nice for lymphatic drainage. But put your legs against the wall. All right, so to come away from that, you're going to take the ball away, and you should now feel that your lower back is a little bit more released. Taking your arms out wide, I want you to just gently roll your knees from side to side. Now this does two things. Number one, it stretches through this lower back area, but it's starting to look at this relationship between the spine and the pelvis, okay? So that lumbo-pelvic region. It's up to you how far over you go. You don't have to wear shoes for this. In fact, I feel really weird wearing shoes, and I don't even know why I've got them on. That's because I've just been teaching another class. Okay. So from here now, we are going to think about ways that we can help improve this muscle. So this is going to be a stretch, and then we're going to exercise. So one way you can stretch it is when you're coming here, is to hold on with the opposite hand. So if this is your left leg, this is your right hand, you need to use your hand, okay, because this muscle is always tight. Bring your leg in closer, okay, and you should already feel your piriformis starting to work. And then use a little bit of downward pressure towards the floor. Now you're aiming to kind of pull down along that IT band, but don't go quickly into the movement, okay? Because if this area is really tight, you can aggravate it. It really helps. Can you see how I'm like stroking my leg? It's nothing weird, right? This is just about thinking about just releasing down towards the knee, okay? So you change over to the other side. So watch, when you come over, you're going to feel the piriformis. Remember, piriformis, internal part of sacrum, external part of hip joint. So you bring your leg closer, so this starts to stretch into this area, and then you try and get your knee lower than your hip. Now, because this is tight, this is going to feel like pain here, okay? But this is because the piriformis sometimes inhibits that movement of the hip, which then has a knock-on effect onto your IT band. So you want to stroke down towards the floor, okay? So again, you're not moving quickly and holding stretches. There's a different kind of method of easing this out. You can use your knuckles if you're feeling like you want to be a little bit mean, but what I quite like is the side of my hand. I find that is really helpful. And then on the last one, just hold it there just for a little while. Okay, so if you have a ball, this is going to really help on this exercise. So we're going to do an exercise called the clam. And the clamp works at piriformis, but also gluteus medius and minimus, which will also work with your IT band. Because we want to keep the focus on the IT band, I want you to think of a space that's about an inch or so above your knee. Get your ball and place your ball onto that. Now you're going to push into the ball and you're going to resist the movement as the leg comes down. So feet are together. You're going to push up into the ball and then you're going to push down towards the other knee. Now it's really important that you don't roll back. Okay, so you want to keep leaning forwards, push, 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 push. So you're only pushing against your own strength. So if you're finding it difficult, what you don't want to do is to have no resistance and just do the repetition. We want to have that focus and you want to definitely create pressure onto that IT band area. All right, and again, one more time, and then recover. Okay. So this, now you're going to have your hand here because I want that shoulder to work, okay? So don't want your arm down, don't want your shoulders to be relaxed. I want you to pull your shoulder blades together. You're going to lift this knee and you're going to try and touch your elbow. You're going to kick your leg out. You're going to sweep your leg as far back behind you as you can. You're going to bend your knee towards your butt and you're going to keep the knee bent and you're going to bring that knee in. Now this is a kind of a slow motion running action. I always think like I'm in that film Avatar, you know, when they've got really long legs. So pull your hip back, bend your knee, get your hamstrings working, keep that hip high. Now if you put your hand on your hip here, what we're trying to do is we're saying to the IT band, this is where you need to stabilise my knee. Can you see how my knee is loaded? My hip is loaded. Okay, so we want to keep that working. And again, one more time. Lovely. All right. So you can now keep the bottom leg here and lie down, or you can straighten out both legs. So we're going to do side lying, and this is going to activate this muscle. So you're going to hold your core in tight, and you're going to lift your foot in line or slightly higher than your hip. Now, the IT band needs to be facing up to the ceiling. You're going to hold the ball up so you get your shoulders working as well, and you're going to squeeze the ball. Remember, if you're not very good at balance, just drop that bottom leg here. So you're going to lift and you're going to tap the IT band, all right? So it's going to be like a reminder to work your IT band. Try not to only work on this phase and then drop your leg down. Try and think about working on both phases of the movement. Now, if you feel like you can do more, you can try and tap on the knee, yeah? Or try and tap beyond the knee. You still wanted to think about keeping that hip joint forwards, and you still want to be thinking about using this muscle to lift the hip, yeah? And use the ball to tap your IT band each time you're doing this. Okay. We're going to bring your knees forwards, all right? And we're going to come into a quad stretch. Now the quads are down the front. You're going to hold onto your foot, not your foot, your shin, and you're going to bring your leg back if you can. Now I find it's really helpful to straighten this leg out. Don't have your shoulder roll forward, roll your shoulder back, pull that leg back, and then you want to push your leg into your arm and resist the movement. So you push your leg into the arm, you feel like you're tight like a bow and arrow. Okay, breathe through it and then release. So this is called the pretzel stretch. So you bring this knee in front and you place the opposite hand onto it and you look up to the ceiling. Now, you want to take a deep breath in and a slow breath out. And each time you do that slow breath out, allow that muscle to stretch. You'll feel it from that sacrum area across the top of the hip, okay? And then you're coming back in. All right, so this exercise is called a torpedo, all right? So the torpedo is going to help to strengthen the muscles that support the hip to give your IT band a little bit more extra help. You know, quite often when we're doing work like running and cycling, we're very linear and we want to be able to move the body in different directions. So for this, get your ball, hold onto your ball and keep your elbow up. All right, so if you don't have a ball, you can put your hands onto the floor, but you want to make sure the elbow is up to keep your shoulder blades engaged. All right, take a breath in. As you breathe out, hold your abs in tight, and then you want to lift your leg so it's in line with your hip, and ideally flex your foot so you're kind of mimicking how your leg would be planted onto the floor. From there, you're going to lift this bottom leg to try and touch the other foot together, and then you're going to release down. Now, what is also working are these obliques onto the side of the body, and these help to stabilise this lumbopelvic area, and we want these muscles to be strong. So if you've got good balance, you can hold here. So when you lift your top leg, you'll feel some engagement in the core, but mainly it's the hip. And then when you lift the bottom leg, you'll feel how that core engages the whole way around to stabilise the hip, and then down. Now you want to do about 8 of these, all right? So pause the video, do 8 of these, and then repeat them onto the other side. Okay, are we happy? All right. So to come out of this, we're going to come up into mermaid. So you bring this leg here, and you're going to come up into this position. Hold on to your shin and lean over to the side. So again, this is stretching through the obliques and just releasing. Okay, so different ways to stretch this muscle. One of the classic ones is to go onto your back, all right, and then take your foot across here. Now, what you're looking for in particular is this relationship between the piriformis and the tensor fasciae latae up here. You want to press this leg away, all right, because otherwise your knee comes back in. If you're not very flexible, just moving your leg in and holding that position will be sufficient amount of stretch. If you're bionic and you've got false hips, remember, don't go beyond this point and don't put any pressure. Here we go. You're going to take a breath in and you're going to lift up. Now, what really helps here is this funny little side-to-side movement. So as you're moving this bottom leg, you'll feel how that changes the stretch into this side by adding a little bit of balance. All right. So remember, any of the side movements really helps. The stroking bit helps. Using a ball, to tap it, or using your hand to tap really helps too. Okay, we're going to come up onto your hands and knees, and we're going to do the cat and camel, because we want to look at this relationship between the pelvis and the back. So think about where your thigh bone fits into your pelvis here. You're going to start by tilting the tailbone down, and I want you to think about how your pelvis rolls over the top of the head of the femur. So you tilt the tailbone down and you arch or work through your upper back. But to release, you release it from the pelvis. So allow that pelvis to rotate over the head of the femur and then let your head come up, okay? So tilt your pelvis, work through the lower back and the upper back, and then tilt your pelvis, and then release. Okay, so from here we're going to come up into a lunge position, and this is a really good way to show or increase stability into this muscle. I'm going to step the other leg forwards first. So if you need to have extra help, a chair, that's fine, but what you want to do is to check this knee-hip alignment here. Try not to be leaning your body weight forward and using your spine. Try and think about the power of this hip. So we started by talking about pushing forward through that front of the hip. So push through the front of the hip, take a breath in, you can use your arms, breathe out, press on that front leg and stand up. All right, you can release. All right, so this next stretch is the same stretch we've just done in a standing position. It's not for everybody, but if you are a runner and you're out running and you can't sometimes lie down onto the floor, you can do this sitting down on a chair, all right? Or you can do it holding on. And it involves taking your foot across here. You want to hold onto your shin, and you want to then squat onto this leg, okay? So you bend this knee. And from here, you take a deep breath in, and as you breathe out, you're going to look to your foot, okay? So as you do that, sink your pelvis down, and you should just feel that stretch in your piriformis, and then you can release. Things like open door, yeah. Work on keeping this muscle nice and mobile, all right. So things like abduction and adduction, all right. So you'll see people warming up their hamstrings this way. There's no reason why you can't do it this way, just to warm it up. But remember, don't go into your stretch straight away, because if it's already aggravated and you've got some inflammation in there, the last thing you want to do is to kind of... So think about the things that we did, easy warm-ups, rocking and rolling, and then working on the stability, because remember, if you're doing this leg has to be stable. It's no good if this hip isn't working. It's not an easy process, it takes a bit of time, but as you keep working through this, you should find you improve the condition of this muscle and improve the stretches. If you want to have a handout of stretches to do at home, just message me and I'll send one via email. Take care, hope that helps.